In a world as dependent on electricity as ours, few scenarios cause more discomfort than the sudden loss of light. Still, on the 28th of April, 2025, this sensation spread like a planetary echo. Massive blackouts, occurring almost simultaneously in different parts of the globe, transformed large cities and small communities into islands of darkness. Airports, hospitals, communication centers, and even military bases have suffered unexpected disruptions. In a matter of minutes, the technology that underpins the modern rhythm of life came to a standstill, and the silence that followed brought with it profound questions. The first official explanations tried to calm the population, cascading failures in electrical systems, network overload, small incidents that, coinciding in time, would have generated a domino effect. However, for more attentive analysts, the coincidences were too many. How could electrical failures have occurred so synchronously in locations separated by entire oceans and continents? What could be behind the phenomenon that even today leaves more questions than answers? It is in this scenario of global unrest that an inevitable question arises. What if these blackouts are not just technical failures? What if we are facing the first signs of a greater influence coming from the cosmos itself, affecting our planet in ways that traditional science cannot yet fully explain? As scientists try to understand what happened, some intriguing clues begin to emerge. Astronomical observatories have recorded in the last 48 hours unusual anomalies in the Earth's ionosphere, the layer of the atmosphere that influences communications and electrical networks. Furthermore, discrete measurements point to subtle fluctuations in Earth's magnetic fields, in a pattern that some experts consider unusual for periods of low solar activity. Slowly crossing a dense region of space known as the local interstellar cloud, the solar system may be, according to some theories, facing spatial variables that are still poorly understood. Charged particles, changes in plasma density, and even gravitational waves that escape our ability to predict. These factors, although real and studied by modern astrophysics, are often minimized in public discussion, perhaps because their practical consequences are still difficult to measure. At the same time, the theory that global blackouts may actually be a reflection of a deeper and rarer interaction between outer space and the Earth's delicate electromagnetic balance is growing on social media and among alternative analysts. Without resorting to mystical or alarmist ideas, this hypothesis suggests that we are more vulnerable to cosmic forces than we like to admit. Naturally, space agencies and climate monitoring centers have not yet confirmed any direct link between blackouts and astronomical phenomena, and it is essential to treat these investigations responsibly. There is to date no evidence that events such as the approach of unknown planets, massive solar storms, or cosmic messages are underway. However, the absence of clear and definitive explanations keeps the mystery alive and humanity's attention focused on the sky. We live in a time where trusting the stability of technology is almost automatic. The simple act of turning on a light bulb, sending a message, or flying an airplane depends on invisible but fundamental systems. When these systems fail without warning, the fragility of our modern civilization becomes impossible to ignore. And it is precisely in this vacuum of certainty that new possibilities of interpretation emerge, some based on data, others on intuition, and others still on the oldest human instinct, that of seeking meaning in the face of the unknown. In this content, we will follow a realistic and investigative line of reasoning together. Let's examine what has been detected in the last few hours in our magnetic field, scientific theories about unstable zones of interstellar space, and how similar events in the past have shaped entire cultures. Without sensationalism, but with an open mind, we will explore whether global blackouts could be more than just technical problems. Could they be the first major warning that the Earth is interacting with universal forces far beyond our control? If this type of investigation makes you think differently about the world around you, take advantage and like the video and subscribe to the channel. This helps a lot to spread information that provokes the mind without alarmism, but with the responsibility that the moment requires. Get ready, because along this journey, you'll realize that sometimes the greatest mysteries don't need to be invented. They are already happening silently right before our eyes. Now, let's understand how, in the almost invisible details of this great event, clues emerge that could change the way we see the relationship between Earth and the universe itself. April 28, 2025 dawned under a scenario that few imagined they would witness. In an almost synchronized manner, several countries began to record electrical power failures, communication interruptions, GPS signal drops, and unexplained anomalies in electrical networks considered highly resilient. Widespread blackouts took over large urban centers, from small cities to metropolises such as Portugal, Spain, France, and other European countries. The whole world was tense and extremely worried about something unprecedented, which had never happened on this scale in history. Official reports quickly pointed to various technical causes: synchronization failures in high voltage networks, overload of transmission lines, and instabilities in geostationary satellites, cyber attacks. But as the information multiplied, a disconcerting pattern began to emerge. Events were not confined to specific areas or interconnected systems. They happened simultaneously in places without direct connection, which for many analysts sounded more like a global disturbance than isolated failures. Several space monitoring institutes detected unusual anomalies in the Earth's magnetic field during the same period. Small variations, but of sufficient amplitude to affect sensitive electronic devices. Some theories suggested the influence of a moderate solar storm, but solar measurements from the day did not indicate enough activity to explain the extent and intensity of the blackouts. From then on, the mystery only grew. Scientists recalled that Earth, throughout 2025, was traversing a region of space known as the local interstellar cloud, a vast concentration of charged particles and unstable magnetic fields. Although this fact is documented, the direct impact of this crossing on the functioning of Earth systems is still the subject of study and, for some, intense speculation. Could Earth's interaction with this cloud have such immediate effects on human infrastructure? At the same time, a theory began to gain traction among independent researchers: the possibility that the current planetary alignment involving Jupiter, Saturn, and Neptune was exerting a subtle but effective gravitational influence on the Earth's magnetic field. These alignments are real astronomical events, and although conventional science ensures that their effects are negligible for everyday life on Earth, some alternative researchers raise hypotheses about a possible amplification of magnetic phenomena in moments of gravitational resonance. In this context, many voices began to ask, what if what we are witnessing is not just a technical failure or natural happenstance? What if there are larger cosmic forces acting in ways we do not yet fully understand, directly affecting our infrastructure and perhaps our own biology? It is worth remembering that throughout history, major blackouts have coincided with unusual celestial events. The famous 1965 blackout in the northeastern United States, for example, occurred just days after an intense geomagnetic storm. In 1989, the province of Quebec, Canada, lost power for 9 hours after a sudden attack of solar particles that overloaded its grids. These events are documented and recognized, but there's never been an occurrence of failures as widespread and simultaneous as today. Adding more layers to the mystery, records from seismic instruments adapted for electromagnetic detection picked up low-frequency signals that began hours before the first blackouts. These signals, called ELF extremely low frequency, are common in nature, but the pattern recorded today is abnormally symmetrical and global. Some researchers suggest they could indicate a coordinated disturbance of the planet's own magnetic field. Conspiracy theorists, wasting no time, quickly link these signals to ancient narratives about extraterrestrial civilizations observing or even intervening in human development at critical moments. Although such an interpretation lacks scientific proof, it echoes deep feelings of uneasiness and uncertainty. After all, it is remarkable that ancient cultures left records of blackouts, anomalous skies, and gods descending from the heavens in moments of great transitions. On the other hand, official agencies, including NASA and space weather observatories, maintained a cautious and technical stance. Their preliminary reports point to the possibility of multiple coinciding factors: small solar flares, local magnetic oscillations, and unmapped vulnerabilities in the world's electrical grids. A logical and plausible explanation, but one that for many still leaves uncomfortable gaps. So far, no government agency has declared a global state of emergency. However, the number of countries activating energy contingency protocols and alternative communications has grown exponentially in the last 24 hours. Protocols like these are generally reserved for natural catastrophes, large-scale cyber attacks, or severe geopolitical risks. Among the world's population, the predominant feeling is one of uncertainty. Social networks, even intermittently, are buzzing with reports of curious visual phenomena, lights that flash in geometric patterns in the sky, aurora borealis appearing in unlikely latitudes, and even serious metallic noises coming from underground in urban areas. These are phenomena documented on a smaller scale in the past, but their simultaneous increase today fuels the perception that something extraordinary and perhaps misunderstood is occurring. In alternative scientific forums, the theory of planetary influence has resurfaced the hypothesis that, in certain alignments and cosmic interactions, the subtle forces of the universe can interfere with Earth's energy fields in ways that have not yet been studied. A marginal hypothesis, but one that seems to gain new followers given the collective experience lived today. The next 48 hours will be crucial to understanding the true extent of these events. As scientists seek explanations within the parameters of known physics, a growing part of the world's population questions whether we are facing a phenomenon that challenges the current understanding of reality, or whether we are simply witnessing, once again, the vulnerability of our hyper-connected civilization to the unpredictable majesty of the cosmos. But a question remains in the air, unsettling and pulsating. What if what we saw today is just the beginning of a series of events that could forever change our relationship with the universe? While most people were trying to return to normality in the midst of intermittent blackouts, astronomical observatories recorded new data that caught the attention of experts' unexpected fluctuations in the Earth's ionosphere. These electromagnetic disturbances were detected simultaneously in several parts of the planet, suggesting the existence of an external source of influence, which has not yet been clearly identified. The phenomenon, although real, opened the way for a flood of interpretations and concerns. At emergency conferences, scientists warned that the ionosphere is an extremely sensitive layer of the atmosphere, responsible for reflecting radio signals and protecting the planet against harmful radiation. Small changes in its structure can, in fact, trigger chain effects, affecting electrical networks, satellites, and even global navigation systems. But what exactly is causing these disturbances? At a time when humanity is already facing one of its most chaotic days in terms of energy. Officially, a cautious explanation began to circulate the combined influence of solar microstorms and Earth's entry into a zone of greater interstellar plasma density. This hypothesis, although technical and reasonable, did not completely explain the almost perfect synchrony of global blackouts, nor the intensity of reports of anomalous atmospheric phenomena coming from regions far from each other. In this void of definitive answers, a theory that has been circulating among alternative researchers for decades has resurfaced that the solar system, in its slow journey through the galaxy, from time to time crosses regions of space with unusual physical properties, zones of high energy density capable of interacting with the planet's magnetic fields in unpredictable ways. This idea, although still considered speculative in traditional scientific circles, found an echo in the events observed today. In historical documents and observations made over the last century, there have been records of sudden blackouts coinciding with magnetic disturbances. But what differentiates the event of April 28, 2025 is its magnitude and scope. Never before, as far as is recorded, has a blackout simultaneously hit so many regions of the planet in such a short space of time, without an obvious cause, such as an intense solar storm or a massive cyber attack. Furthermore, environmental monitoring satellites captured subtle changes in the propagation patterns of low-frequency electromagnetic waves, something that, according to some physicists, could indicate the interference of a phenomenon of external origin, possibly coming from outside the solar system. The measurements were discrete. but enough to fuel speculation about the arrival of some unprecedented cosmic influence. In private forums and networks studying cosmic anomalies, hypotheses began to circulate that speak of a possible approach to celestial bodies not yet officially detected, such as wandering planets or even concentrations of dark matter. Some even cautiously mentioned the infamous Planet 9, a hypothetical object of great mass that, according to some theories, could exert gravitational effects at a distance, disturbing orbits and perhaps affecting planetary magnetic fields. Naturally, such ideas are treated with skepticism by the traditional scientific community. However, the fact that multiple electrical and communication systems around the world have collapsed in parallel without prior warning and without visible concrete cause leaves room for these possibilities previously relegated to the margins of science to gain new interest. Another, more recent line of investigation proposed that the anomalies recorded in the ionosphere could also be the result of internal activities on Earth, such as movements in the planet's core. Recent research suggests that Earth's inner core may occasionally rotate at a different speed than the mantle, generating magnetic changes that, amplified by certain astronomical alignments, could manifest unexpected global effects. There is still no consensus on this theory, but it offers a terrestrial explanation for a phenomenon that until now seemed to come from space. Among the population, the emotional impact is visible. In several countries, there were reports of people gathering to watch the night sky, looking for signs, while others prayed or meditated, feeling that they were witnessing something that transcended common human understanding. Pulsating lights on the horizon, serious noises, constant electrical failures, and the sudden silence of electronic equipment created an almost surreal atmosphere in cities and countryside. Governments, in turn, maintained a posture of vigilance and discretion. No authority has confirmed any cosmic relationship to the blackouts, preferring to focus on restoring systems and stabilizing networks. Official statements call for calm, reinforcing that investigations are ongoing and that the energy supply must be gradually normalized. Still, the widespread feeling that something different is happening is difficult to contain. Experts in space climatology were invited to comment on major news networks. Many have suggested that the coincidence between small solar flares and the crossing of the interstellar cloud could indeed amplify effects on Earth in ways that we still do not fully understand. It's a developing area of science, and it wouldn't be surprising that new phenomena are just beginning to be noticed. Meanwhile, historical records resurface as silent warnings. Ancient civilizations such as the Mayans and the Egyptians recorded in their calendars and monuments major blackouts of light and interruptions in natural cycles associated with celestial phenomena. Whether mythological interpretations or records of real events, it is intriguing how the past seems to echo the present. The world, therefore, remains suspended in an unanswered question. Are we simply facing an unusual convergence of natural factors? Or are we, without realizing it, entering a new era of direct interaction with cosmic forces that we have barely begun to understand? The answer may be closer than we think, but it could also reveal something that will forever change the way we see the universe and ourselves. As energy systems around the globe began to slowly restore themselves, the questions that hung over April 28th, 2025 became even more intense. Governments, research institutes, and the press tried to explain the blackouts in a rational way. But for many, the almost synchronized succession of events seemed to go beyond mere coincidence. The public consensus oscillated between two forces. On the one hand, the search for tangible scientific explanations, such as the influence of solar particles, instabilities in the Earth's magnetic field, or anomalies in the ionosphere. On the other hand, a more subtle and difficult to express sensation was growing, a collective intuition that something out there much bigger than us was perhaps trying to manifest itself. Space climatology researchers have turned their eyes to rare events such as the possible passage of Earth through highly charged regions of interstellar space phenomena that could alter the planet's electromagnetic behavior without us being able to predict in advance. This possibility, however remote it may sound, carries enough weight to justify new investments and studies in this critical area of science. The theory of the local interstellar cloud, a region of space that the solar system crosses, which had already been a subject of debate in previous decades, gained new momentum. Studies indicate that this cloud is made up of ionized gas and particles that can interact with the solar and terrestrial magnetic fields. Some physicists suggest that the effects of these interactions may be more dynamic than previously thought, causing large-scale oscillations in our planet's electrical and climate systems. Without sensationalism, but with the caution that the moment requires, several astrophysicists reinforce that we are still in the dark in relation to the complete behavior of the cosmic environment around us. Most of the data we have is limited to indirect observations, and it is entirely plausible that surprises still await us in the vast unknown of space. Meanwhile, more conspiratorial voices have hypothesized that some kind of cosmic message could be afoot. Not necessarily intelligent communication in the traditional sense, but a kind of natural warning, a way for the universe to remind us that we inhabit a small, vulnerable planet amid immeasurable forces. Old documents were analyzed again. Many remembered the interruptions recorded during historical events such as the solar storm of 1859, the famous Carrington event, which caused telegraph blackouts in the 19th century. The difference, however, is that on April 28, 2025, there were no reports of an ongoing massive solar superstorm, at least not within known monitoring standards. This lack of definitive explanation fuels a global feeling of vulnerability. After all, what makes us modern civilization is in large part our total dependence on electricity. When the light goes out, even for a few hours, we realize how our safety, our communication, and even our very sense of normalcy are intertwined with an invisible and deeply fragile infrastructure. Some authorities have even proposed that new safety protocols be developed, not just for traditional solar storms, but for unforeseen cosmic anomalies. This would include strengthening electrical grids, developing more resilient technologies, and educational programs to prepare populations for long-term blackouts. Among the scientific community, consensus is growing that this may have been an early warning, a unique chance to rethink our relationship with the space that surrounds us. After all, if a simple invisible disturbance was capable of disconnecting entire nations, what could happen if we face something even greater, such as an emission of intense galactic radiation or the close passage of an undetected massive object? It is important to emphasize that all these reflections are not intended to cause alarm, but rather to encourage preparation and humility, understanding that our existence is ultimately tied to cosmic dynamics far beyond our control should not generate fear, but wisdom. Wisdom to act in a more conscious, resilient, and connected way to universal realities. Throughout the process of investigating the blackouts, one lesson became clear: the universe is not an empty, passive space. It is dynamic, full of forces that interact on scales that we can barely measure. Our planet, our civilization, our lives, all of it navigates an ongoing dance with the unknown. Given this, the real question that remains is not just what caused the blackouts in April 2025. But yes, are we prepared to live in a world where the unexpected, the invisible, and the incomprehensible can manifest themselves at any moment? Maybe the blackouts weren't just electrical failures. Perhaps they were a silent reminder from the stars that there's much more going on out there than our eyes and sensors can capture. An invitation perhaps to expand not only our technologies, but our own consciousness. At the end of this unforgettable day, humanity found itself looking up to the sky with a new kind of awe. Not just looking for answers, but understanding, albeit intuitively, that we are part of something vast, complex, and incredibly mysterious. And right now, as you watch this video, the space around us continues to move. Invisible waves of energy, particles traveling at unimaginable speeds, gravitational forces altering the fabric of space-time. And we, small inhabitants of a small blue planet, move forward, carrying in our hearts the eternal search for meaning. If all this made sense to you, share this content. Someone you know may need to reflect on this too. Leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything that's coming up. And there's one more story that will surprise you, and it's on your screen now and it's unmissable. It'll wait for you in the next video.